What's up everybody, I hope you're all having a great week. Welcome back to the channel for another one from every team video where today I'm going to be going over the biggest X factor for every NHL team this season. If you don't know what I mean by X factor, basically it's a player on a team that can have a really big impact on their team's success one way or the other. In some cases I went with guys who I think need to stay healthy, guys that have had injury problems the past couple of seasons, players that I think could break out and become really big X factors for their teams, stuff like that. I made one of these videos a couple of years ago, didn't make one last season, so I thought might as well do one heading into the 2021-22 season. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We're going in alphabetical order like usual, starting off with the Anaheim Ducks. Definitely going with John Gibson on this one. This was a pretty easy decision for me. If the Anaheim Ducks won't have any legit chance of making a playoff push this season, they are going to need John Gibson to be much better than he has been the past 3 years. It really doesn't feel like it was all that long ago when John Gibson was regarded as one of the better goaltenders in the league, like top 3, top 5. He's definitely fallen off a lot since then, so I'm definitely going with Gibson as the Ducks' biggest X factor. If he doesn't bounce back, then I really can't see them being a legit threat to make the playoffs, but if he does, if he gets back to that elite level, then maybe this team could surprise some people. The Arizona Coyotes is a tough one for me. There isn't really any one player on the team that I could see having a dramatic impact on the team's results in terms of wins and losses, so I went with Shane Gostisbehere. He's heading into the final year of his contract as a cap of $4.5 million, a guy who quietly had 50 points for Arizona this past season. At one point in his career, he had 65 points in a single year. He's a great offensive defenseman. If he can have a strong first half of the season, I think this is a guy who's going to get a lot of attention come trade deadline season. Arizona obviously has more than enough space to retain 50% of that contract as well. I think any team in the league that needs a puck-moving defenseman in their top 4 would love to get Shane Gostisbehere at $2.25 million. So I definitely think it's important for Gostisbehere to have a strong start to the season so he can fetch Arizona a nice return at the trade deadline. The Boston Bruins, definitely going with Taylor Hall on this one. Boston for me is one of the most intriguing teams heading into this season. They're going to be really shorthanded the first couple of months. No Brad Marchand, no Matt Grzelcyk, and no Charlie McAvoy. That is the team's best forward and best defenseman being out for the first couple of months. So I definitely feel like it's imperative that guys step up and take on a bigger role and produce well for Boston to stay afloat and not dig themselves into too deep of a hole while they're waiting for those guys to come back. If I'm the Bruins, I'm definitely looking at Taylor Hall as a guy to do that. He was the MVP of the league back in 2018, and I'm not saying he has to get back to that level, but if he can be, around a point a game for the first few months, which I definitely think he's capable of doing, I think that would be huge for the Bruins, to make up some of the difference, some of the offense they're going to lose with Brad Marchand out of the lineup. For the Buffalo Sabres, I'm actually going with a rookie. I'm going to say Jack Quinn is their biggest X factor this season. Buffalo was in the bottom 10 in the league in terms of goals per game this past season. I think it would be huge if a rookie like Jack Quinn could come in, spark that offense a little bit, give them some scoring depth. He's got fantastic finishing ability, had a great year in the AHL. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in and score 20 to 25 goals as a rookie. I think he's actually a decent dark horse pick for the Calder as well. The Calgary Flames, I'm going to go with Elias Lindholm on this one. Just had a career year, 42 goals, was a Selke Trophy finalist, unbelievable season. I'm really interested to see how he plays now that he's going to have 2 new line mates. Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, 2/3 of one of the best lines in the league this past season, are now gone. So I'm really intrigued to see what kind of year Lindholm has. Obviously, he's a very, very important player for the Flames. I don't really think he has to do exactly what he did this past season for Calgary to have the same regular season success, but if he really falls off, then I could see that having a pretty big impact on Calgary's results. So Lindholm for me is the biggest X factor for the Flames. The Carolina Hurricanes, I'm going to go with Max Pacioretty. Still kind of find it hard to believe that they got a guy like Pacioretty basically for free in the offseason, a guy who's scored at pretty much a 40-goal point per game pace in each of the past 2 seasons. Now, of course, Pacioretty is going to miss a good chunk of the season, but when he comes back, if he can play at that level he's played at the past couple seasons with Vegas, adding a player like that to an already deadly lineup that the Hurricanes have, that's going to be crazy. The Blackhawks, I'm going to go with Jonathan Toews on this one. Obviously, everybody kind of expects Patrick Kane to get dealt at some point before the trade deadline. I feel like if they want to embrace that full-on rebuild, they'll probably look to trade Jonathan Toews in the final year of his deal as well. But in order to really get any kind of return for Jonathan Toews, especially considering his cap hit, even if you retain 50% of that, I think he needs to be much better in the first half of the season than he was, all of last year. The Colorado Avalanche, definitely going with Alex Newhook on this one. He's a guy that I'm expecting to have a big breakout season, and if he does, I think that's going to be huge for the Avalanche. Obviously, they lost a bit of scoring depth over the offseason with Burakovsky signing in Seattle, Nazem Kadri signing in Calgary. They're going to need some guys to step up and provide a little bit of scoring depth behind the likes of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog. I think Newhook is the perfect candidate for that. He's incredibly skilled, looked good this past season despite playing playing kind of a minor role, this season he should see a pretty significant increase in minutes. The Columbus Blue Jackets, I'm going to go with Cole Sillinger on this one. The youngest player in the NHL this past season, had a strong rookie year considering he was kind of thrown into the fire. The Blue Jackets don't really have that true number one center. They got Boone Jenner, they got Jack Roslovic, but if Cole Sillinger can take a big step in year number 2, not become like an elite number one center already, I don't think that's really a realistic expectation, but if he can be good enough to play between the likes of Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine, bump Roslovic and Jenner down the lineup, I think that would be huge for the Blue Jackets, really help their center depth. Next up we have the Red Wings. I'm going with Jacob Vrana on this one. Detroit has struggled offensively for many seasons now. They were 25th in the league in terms of goals for per game this past year. I think in order for the Red Wings to get out of the basement of the league in that category, Jacob Vrana needs to stay healthy. This is a guy who's played 37 total games with Detroit since being traded from Washington and has 21 goals in those games. That's a pretty crazy pace. If Vrana can stay healthy, score 30 plus goals, factor that in with all the other additions the Red Wings made over the offseason, Seider and Raymond being a year older and a year better, then I think there's a legit chance that the Red Wings could be in a playoff race this year. The Dallas Stars, I'm going to go with one of their offseason additions, Mason Marchment, signed a 4-year deal with the Stars after really breaking out this past year with the Florida Panthers, albeit playing in a minor role, not really getting a ton of minutes. He was one of the league leaders in terms of even strength points per 60. After signing him to that deal, I think it's safe to say the Stars plan on using him in a much bigger role than the role he played this past season with the Panthers. Can he replicate the same success? Can he continue to be a really productive player? I'm really interested to see. The Edmonton Oilers, obviously, the real obvious and easy answer would be McDavid. This team's going to go as far as he takes them, but I'm actually going to go with Evander Kane on this one. Obviously, after signing mid-season with the Edmonton Oilers last year, he performed really well, scored at a really good pace, especially in the playoffs. I'm really intrigued to see what those numbers are going to look like after playing a full season next to the likes of McDavid or Draisaitl. The Florida Panthers, definitely going with Aaron Ekblad on this one, especially after Mackenzie Weegar got dealt to the Flames as part of the Matthew Tkachuk trade. I think it is incredibly important that Aaron Ekblad stays healthy. He's really going to have a big weight on his shoulders carrying that blue line. I'm already not all that confident in that decor with Ekblad in the lineup, so if he goes down for an extended period of time like he has in each of the past 2 seasons, I'm not sure how the Florida Panthers are going to fare. The Los Angeles Kings, I'm going to go with Arthur Kaliev. Obviously, the Kings are a great young team. I feel like Kaliev kind of gets overlooked or lost in the shuffle a little bit, but I'm a big fan of his game. I think he has the potential to be a 30-goal scorer, be a power play specialist. He has a really heavy shot. If he can have that big breakthrough in year 2, especially after the Kings added the likes of Kevin Fiala, I mean, that forward core is looking pretty stacked. You honestly could have went with Quentin Byfield for this spot as well. I think the same thing kind of applies to him. The Minnesota Wild, I'm going with the rookie Marco Rossi. Just had a fantastic season in the American Hockey League. All things are pointing to him making the Minnesota Wild out of training camp and playing a pretty big role on the team. With Kevin Fiala now being in Los Angeles and the Minnesota Wild not really getting a roster player in return, they just kind of get future assets in that deal. There's going to be opportunities to be had. Can Marco Rossi and Matthew Boldy be that second wave of offense, behind the top line that I'm guessing is going to stay the same because they were so good last season of Zuccarello, Hartman, and Kaprizov. The Montreal Canadiens going with one of their offseason additions, Kirby Dach. They traded for Christian Dvorak last offseason. He didn't have a great first year in Montreal, didn't really fill that second line center role like I'm sure they hoped he would have. Now in a new situation, a new opportunity, a fresh start, can Kirby Dach realize his potential that everybody thought he had when he was selected 3rd overall in 2019? Can he fill that second line center role for the Canadiens? The Nashville Predators, I'm going to go with Matt Duchene on this one. Just had an incredible season, career highs across the board, 43 goals, 86 total points. Considering that his first couple years in Nashville were really underwhelming, was last year just a flash in the pan? Is that going to be just kind of a one-year thing, or is he going to be able to replicate that success this upcoming season and prove that he's not overpaid and he's worth the contract that he's currently on? The New Jersey Devils, easily going with Hamilton on this one. Pretty underwhelming first year in New Jersey after signing that massive deal in the summer of 2020. If the Devils want to take that next step, which they've been looking to do for the past couple of years, I think they need Dougie Hamilton to get back to being that elite number 1 defenseman that we all know he's capable of being. The New York Islanders, I'm going with Matthew Barzal. That team really lacks that, true star forward. We've seen flashes that Matthew Barzal is capable of being that guy, but he's just been a little bit inconsistent. Now this season, under a new coach, probably isn't going to be as defense oriented as Barry Trotz was. I'm really interested to see what kind of numbers Matthew Barzal can put up. The New York Rangers, I'm going with former 1st overall pick Alexis Lafreniere. Obviously, when he was drafted, he was viewed as a franchise-altering player. First couple of years in the league, I don't think have went the way everyone expected them to, but he has gotten gotten better. He's going to be playing in a much bigger role this upcoming season. I imagine he's going to be spending the majority of the year in the top 6. If not, then I think that would be pretty concerning. So can year 3 be the season where he really takes that big leap into becoming a borderline star player? Imagine you have him realize his potential, factor that in with the likes of Artemi Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, Adam Fox. I mean, that just makes the New York Rangers that much more dangerous, and I mean, they already made the conference finals last year. The Ottawa Senators, I'm going with rookie Jake Sanderson on this one. Obviously, Ottawa is one of the most improved teams of the offseason. Their forward core looks great. Their goaltending should be good enough. The one question mark on that team, I think, is still the blue line. Obviously, you have Thomas Chabot, but one defenseman can't carry an entire blue line, so I'm looking for Jake Sanderson to come in and have a big rookie season, solidify himself as the second best defenseman on that team already. The Philadelphia Flyers, I think they're screwed, honestly, this season either way. I mean, it just came out that Sean Couturier is probably going to be out for a long time, so that's really unfortunate, but if they want to make any noise whatsoever, Carter Hart needs to be much better than he has been in the past couple of years. They need 2020 playoffs version of Carter Hart pretty much all year. The Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm going with one of their offseason additions. Defenseman Jeff Petrie had a bit of a down year in Montreal, but I mean, who didn't on the Canadiens, really, if we're being honest? Can Jeff Petrie get back to being that true top-pairing defenseman that we know he's capable of being? I think that would be really important for the Penguins, because if not, say if Jeff Petrie's washed at this point in his career, which I don't think is all that likely, but it's possible. If that happens, then the Penguins' blue line wouldn't really look the greatest, especially after trading, John Marino for Ty Smith, too. A lot of people forget those deals. The San Jose Sharks, I'm going with Erik Karlsson on this one. I mean, say even if he does have a Norris caliber season, I still don't see the Sharks doing all that much. I just don't think that roster is good enough, but considering Karlsson is one of the highest paid players in the league, considering he's still under contract for a very long time, it would definitely be really ideal for the Sharks if he can get back to playing at that truly elite level, being one of the better defensemen in the league. Now, does he even still have that in him after all those injuries? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we have Seattle. I'm going with rookie Matty Beniers, one of the Calder favorites heading into this season. Obviously, in their inaugural season, the Seattle Kraken had some trouble offensively. I think it's really important for this team that Matty Beniers picks up where he left off to close out this past season, where he was pretty much a point-a-game player with the Seattle Kraken in the stint he had with them. If that happens, then it also makes this team a lot deeper down the middle, because Alexander Wenberg and Yanni Gourde, they're solid centermen, but neither of them are truly a number one centerman. So can Matty Beniers fill that role in year 1? I think he's going to have a big year, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I didn't want to have too many goaltenders in this video, because obviously a goaltender can heavily affect a team's success, whether in a good way or a bad way, but for the Blues, definitely have to go with Jordan Binnington, considering he's going to have Ville Husso behind him to kind of take over as the starter if Binnington fails this year. Now, although he had a poor regular season, Binnington did kind of get his mojo back in the playoffs before going down with that injury, but if the Blues even want to get to the playoffs, I think they're going to need at least solid goaltending from Binnington during the regular season. As a Red Wings fan, I can say I'm not all that confident in Thomas Greiss being a solid backup for them, so I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Binnington. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm going to go with Brandon Hagel. I feel like he's kind of going to be that guy that fills the role Andre Palat played for the Tampa Bay Lightning for so many years. Now that Palat is gone and in New Jersey, I think Hagel is more than capable of playing in that top 6. Producing offense. He's a very fast player. He should be able to keep up with the best players on the Lightning, and also he has a pretty good two-way game, good two-way instincts, so I think he's going to be able to fill that role that Palat left nicely. The Toronto Maple Leafs, definitely going with Matt Murray. You could say Samsonov too. Pretty much I just feel like goaltending is the big X factor for the Maple Leafs. We know they have a great offense. We know they can score goals. We know when healthy their defense is good enough. Are they going to be able to get saves? Are they going to be able to get good goaltending performances? That is definitely the big question for this team heading into this season. The Vancouver Canucks, I'm going with Pettersson on this one. He's obviously a fantastic player, but I feel like there's definitely another level that Elias Pettersson can get to. I feel like he has the capability of being, a borderline top 10 centerman in the NHL. If he can get to that level, and then you have a guy like JT Miller playing at an elite level too, I think it makes this offense very dangerous. The Vegas Golden Knights, this is an easy one. Has to be Jack Eichel. Since they've came into the league, obviously they've been a good team, but they haven't had that true elite number one centerman. Obviously William Karlsson had a great inaugural season. Chandler Stevenson stepped up and played really well last year, but can Jack Eichel get back to playing at the level we know he's capable of and be that true number one centerman, true superstar centerman that the Vegas Golden Knights have been looking for? The Washington Capitals, I'm going with Anthony Mantha. As a Red Wings fan, I know that Anthony Mantha can sometimes be hit or miss, but when he's on top of his game, he can be a dominant force offensively, be one of the better power forwards in the league. I really believe that. When in the lineup, I feel like Mantha is the definition of an X-Factor player, but but also that's another thing, he has to be in the lineup because he only played 37 games with the Caps this past season, so him staying healthy, staying on the ice is definitely another important thing. And now finally finishing out the video with the Winnipeg Jets, definitely gonna go with Pierre-Luc Dubois on this one, just because it seems like there's always so much drama surrounding this player. When he's locked in, when he's healthy, when he's on the ice, and that's all he's focused on is playing good hockey, he can be a great player. But again, it just seems like there's always so much drama surrounding Dubois. There was all that talk throughout the offseason of him potentially being traded, him wanting to play for the Montreal Canadiens. There was that conspiracy that he was at the draft because he thought he was going to get traded to Montreal. So I'm definitely going with Dubois as the Jets' biggest X factor. Is he going to be locked in? Is he going to be fully committed? This is definitely a big year for him. It's the final year of his contract. He's going to be an RFA again next offseason. If he wants to get a big deal, I think he has to perform well. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those were, in my opinion, the biggest X factors for every NHL team heading into this season. As always, I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this, so if you disagree with any of my picks, even though I don't really think this is a video you can disagree with, but if you have a different pick than me, be sure to let me know what your list looks like down below in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this one from every team video and you want to see a couple more like this before the season starts, be sure to leave it a like. That's the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.